What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast featuring Phil Perry. We got a quarterback pod today, guys, because there are so many quarterback dominoes wobbling, falling, toppling into each other, or even being about to be taken out of a box, i.e. the draft guys, that we have to go, I think, eyeballs deep on it. But before anything, Phil, we get some breaking news to share regarding the Patriots. Ian Rappaport, NFL media, says that Jonathan Jones will not be franchise tagged. Rapp broke that earlier this afternoon. No franchise tag for Jonathan Jones, though the Patriots may be interested in retaining Jonathan Jones' services. Of course, that's an $18 million price tag for franchising Jonathan Jones. Am I a dick, Phil, for pointing out that that was a wholly unnecessary tweet on Rapp's part?
Rappaport's part? I don't think so. No, you weren't the only one either. I saw. But God bless that guy.
I love him. He's great.
God bless him. He's the best. He's the best.
You know, I mean, he used to be at the Herald, and when he was at the Herald, they had a blog, and we had a blog, and there would be nothing that he would not blog about on his little Herald blog. It was really before Twitter too, so it was like 2010, 11. Really late 2009 as well. So 9, 10, 11, he would blog about anything. I'm like, who cares? You can't blog about this. He would blog about it. And then a couple, 2-3 years later, he had blogged enough and covered enough games for the Patriots, which puts you in the limelight to a degree, and boom, NFL Network. Because he works hard, Phil. Because he works hard.
He does. And so does Jonathan Jones, but I don't think anybody thought he was going to be making $18 million next year.
Okay, back to live action. Let's get into the quarterbacks. There's names out there. There's names like Brady. There's names like Jones. There's names like Rodgers and Jackson and Carr and Geno Smith. There's names like Jimmy G and Daniel Jones and Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, even Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. We're going to roll through all of them, and the news is circling with each. Again, we have to deal with a Tom Brady story. Rich Eisen said Birdie's told him in Indianapolis to stay loose on the Brady front because you shouldn't be surprised if he winds up with the Dolphins. Brady adding on today, piling back or pushing back and saying, that's not happening. We have a cat. That was the tweet. That's what he said.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's not the most convincing argument that he could have made as to why he's not going to come back to football. Because I believe cats are really like the one pet that you could just not see for months at a time and they'd be totally fine. So who do you believe here, Tom? You believe the birdies in Indy, or do you believe the man with the Twitter account?
Well, I texted with old Rich Eisen a little bit today, and I said that Brady's tweet rebuffed Rich's contention. And then Rich made me feel silly. He goes, you really don't think that he tweeted that himself, do you? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I didn't really realize that. I still
but those people that are tweeting for him should know what he's thinking, feeling, doing one way or another. They can't just fire off at the hip whatever they want, can they?
Can't. No way. Not in 2023.
No.
The bottom line is, okay. And Zoe even said, and I only know this from our early edition email thread, apparently he said on the radio, 98.5, the Sports Hub, that it wouldn't surprise him if Brady wound up with the Dolphins. I mean, think about those first 3 words. It wouldn't surprise him. So we got a guy who's going to retire 2 years in a row and come out of retirement 2 years in a row. And he's going to bump Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah, he's gettable, despite everything the Dolphins say. But it should be surprising. It would be quite eye-opening. If it came across right now, Tom Brady's coming back to the NFL, I'd say, holy shit. I would be very surprised because I have it at less than 5% he's coming back this year. Next year, we'll talk.
Wait, so next year, now the door's open for next year?
Yeah, he's going to get stuff straight. He's going to have a couple sandwiches, a few more protein shakes.
Okay. But Tom, you saying that he just needs to get stuff straight, not just, listen, hopefully the guy's life is in order and he feels like he's in a good place, and that could take a lot of time. but you indicating that maybe we should be talking about this next year indicates that there is a fire that still burns within the guy to play the game. And if it's still there and he wakes up tomorrow and he says, you know what? My life is actually in a pretty good place right now. I thought this was going to take a whole year, but it turns out it just was going to be a few months. Who's to say? Tua's still shaking free of the cobwebs. You know, Miami needs a guy. I know the guys down there. They've wanted me for a long time. That's an attractive thing for me to do. My kids are still close enough by that I can make the whole thing work. I don't know. You telling me that he might be coming back in 2024 doesn't do anything for me in terms of wanting to shoot down the Rich Eisen birdies. That's all.
It does not quell the conversation. It does not quell the conversation at all for you. It actually lights a bit of a fire, throws a log on it.
Yes, I think you're contributing to this. You're part of the problem now.
I'm part of the chatter.
Look, and listen, I don't think it's a problem. I would love for Tom Brady to play. If he feels like he's in a good place and he's happy,
he's still playing when he sucked. He led the league in what, yards and attempts this year?
Yep, he doesn't suck.
Phil Perry's MVP last year.
Yep.
So
doesn't suck.
I think he has to get shit straight at home. I know that he does. So does Donovan McNabb.
Does he need 12 months?
I don't know. I would say that I'll be surprised if Tom Brady comes back.
Yeah, it'd be surprising, but now you've just the fire is ablaze. You've done a good job of stoking it.
Let's move on to Mac Jones, Patriots quarterback. I think we're now at the point where the media is smelling its own farts on the Mac Jones front because Dan Graziano, who I enjoy very much, I've spent much time with Dan Graziano, enjoying laughs together and talking with Jimmy Haslam at the owners' meetings. Really funny. Anyway, the Jimmy Haslam exchange was funny. But he says that he's hearing Mac Jones to the Raiders chatter, persistent. When I hear chatter, I'm thinking of some assistant GM or a scout 9 Trulies deep into his night saying, you know, what I'm hearing, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, Mac Jones, he was a real dick out there this year. I wouldn't be surprised if McDaniels does something. That's chatter to me. And where would that guy have heard that? He probably heard it from us in the first place. And it got vomited onto Twitter and it moved into the atmosphere and it landed on that associate general manager's feed. He read it and then he burped it out after he got another Truly. And now it's chatter. But let's play along for a second. If the Raiders offered a first-round pick for Mac Jones, would you feel that Bill Belichick would find that enticing?
Yes.
What would that do, though, to Robert Kraft's expectations of competing, certainly for a playoff spot, and maybe for more than that as soon as this year? Because that would, if you move on from Mac Jones, you're either going, you know, Bailey Zappi or Jimmy Garoppolo. And that would also mean that 2020 was a reset year. 2021 was an okay year. 2022 turned out to be a wasted year. And 2023 will be a reset year. So 3 out of 4 years post Brady, you just wandering around going, man, let's try this. So I don't think it goes over big with Robert Kraft, no matter how enticing it is.
No, I don't think so either. But the first round pick that the Raiders have this year is 7 overall.
Why did I say 4?
I don't know. That's the Colts. But, 7 overall, you could be in the quarterback mix for this year's draft. You could be in the who knows what mix. You could be, maybe you're running it back with Bailey Zappi. And gosh, I just think Bill Belichick could be enticed because at the quarterback position, it would be almost a chance to just restart the clock. We're talking about an extension that maybe Mac Jones will be presented with next year, depending on how that thing goes, or a 5th-year option or a franchise tag. And then he could be looking at saying, Oh boy, that sounds like a headache to me. If we could just go back to a guy who's on a rookie contract, or then in 2024 he's only going to be in his second year. Then anyway,
It's too complicated, Phil. I mean,
I
you're
wouldn't
not
be
saying it's
interested in it.
likely.
I think he might though. Top 10 picks or top 10 picks or top 10 picks.
Yeah, but not if you don't have a quarterback. I mean, and you do have a quarterback. If you're jettisoning, tough word for me sometimes. If you're getting rid of a competent quarterback who's already shown he can play in the league, and Bill himself said he can play in the league. If you're getting rid of that guy to bring in a wild card who could end up being Zach Wilson, who could end up being Trey Lance, who could end up being Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence and needing a year of seasoning, well, then you can't just perpetually push it down the road. You got to shit or get off the pot, Bill. So I can't imagine that they would trade Mac Jones. And again, as I've said before, over Robert Kraft's dead body.
Yeah, I don't think Kraft would want to, and I don't think they will, and I don't think the Raiders would ever offer the 7th pick for Mac Jones. Although I wouldn't hate that deal for them. What are you going to get at 7 if you're the Raiders? You might get Will Levis from Kentucky, or you might get a tackle who can play, or you might. Mac Jones is still one of the best contract values in the league, in my opinion. 100%. I got him at number 7 or 8 in the league. So they shouldn't do it. They won't do it. I think if in a fantasy land scenario where Bill Belichick is presented with it, I think he might consider it. That's all.
Phil, something you and I have talked about a lot over the last couple of years, 3 years really, is the quarterback middle class. Hasn't really existed. But over the last 24 hours, I think that we might have seen a quarterback middle class salary established with Derek Carr and Geno Smith. First, Carr is going to go to the Saints. He signed a deal. Now, initially, the report on Carr's salary was going to be, or not salary, but the contract in general was 4 years, $150 million, which makes it sound really great. As Mike Florio points out, it is at best a 3-year, $100 million deal, since the 4th year is device aimed simply at driving the average from 33 to 37.5. And the contract could be as short as 2 years and $70 million, with the final $10 million being subject to offset in 2025, meaning if he goes someplace else. Anyway, we go from that to Geno Smith, and Geno Smith had a 3-year, $105 million deal that actually amounts to 3 and 75 with $30 million in incentives. So there's a $25 million contract there, and there is what the hell did I say? And
three for 100, which is 33 for Derek Carr.
Yeah, three for 100. So 33 and a 25. So that's why is that germane, Tom? Who cares? Well, you get guys like the franchise tag number, non-exclusive, is 42-ish right now. And that's what Mac Jones is going to be looking at in a couple of years. So what has to happen is there has to be something established in the low 30s, which will be the mid 30s in 2 years for Mac Jones, that shows you a landing spot for a guy who's good, not great. Do you find anything else about these deals that makes you say, that's interesting?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the point that you're making. I think owners are probably happy the fact that these guys have signed for what they've signed for. In a world where Daniel Jones, who is, I don't know, what is he, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th best quarterback in the league, might make $40 million a year, that's a scary world to be in. A world where Derek Carr, who is, in my opinion, and I think you could look at a variety of different metrics that would bear this out. He's been, like him or not, he's been sort of sniffing the top 10-ish territory of quarterbacks in the NFL. And now that guy is getting 33. That's much more palatable than Daniel Jones for 40. And so I do think there is now a middle-class quarterback market that has sort of been established here. And I think that's a good thing for a league where it was looking like if you wanted a competent veteran quarterback, you might now be looking at $40 million a year. These two deals have brought that number back, have brought the market for quarterbacks in general back to the real world. And I think that's a good development for owners. And maybe it'll be a relevant development for Mac Jones at some point. Let's see how this next year or two go.
Another further interesting development on the quarterback front is Lamar Jackson. He's going to get the non-exclusive franchise tag from the Ravens. The difference between that and the exclusive means that a team can court Lamar and make him an offer. If that team does get him to agree, the Ravens have a chance to match or take 2 second-round picks. So that's the non-exclusive. If it was exclusive, nobody else could dabble. But there's an $8 million difference. Non-exclusive is, I believe, $32.5 million. So again, we're seeing Lamar Jackson, former MVP. His team is balking at giving him guaranteed money, going up to $40 million, and even balking so much at the $40 million price tag for him that they're going to let other teams come in and make offers on him. If you're Lamar Jackson, you're like, wow, that's eye-opening. The non-exclusive, I mean, saying we'll take 2 firsts for you. That goes to you, Phil.
I can't gauge your pacing.
Is that eye-opening for you, Phil? When I say Phil.
Yes, I got that part.
You weren't listening to me at all.
I was.
What was up with my
Sometimes you pause and you're not done. And there's something to add. It's not bad. It's just sometimes I miss the I miss the runway. And now I have to come back around and do a loop.
Well, I would say this. When you hear Phil, it's your ball. Phil.
Fair enough. Not eye-opening to me, Tom. They can't get a deal done with the guy. What do you want them to do? Like, unless they give him a $235 million guaranteed contract, which he probably isn't taking, which good for him. That's his right. And he wants Deshaun Watson money, and he probably should. And I hope for the sake of the players, like that there is some movement here and that maybe he does get a fully guaranteed deal. I think that'd be great for players in a league where players get screwed on the regular. I'm not surprised that the Ravens have gone this route, though. I think they've made him offers.
Well,
and
what
now
about
they're
exclusive versus non-exclusive?
Yeah.
Because I think it's got to be eye-opening.
What they're saying is, Tom, we'd love to get you on a deal here, Lamar. Go ahead and see what the rest of the world thinks you're worth. And then we'll have the opportunity to match. It's not automatic. If he signs it, it's 2 first-round picks gone. They have the opportunity to match it. So
right.
If they say to Lamar, go find out. If the Jets want to give you $235 million guaranteed, then we were wrong. You were right. Godspeed. We'll take the 2 first-round picks.
They could have spent that extra $8 million and made it so nobody could talk to him. To me, that's like basically leaving the screen door open in your house.
But if they want him long-term, Tom, you want him to see what his market truly is. If you give him the exclusive, he doesn't get the opportunity to do that. And now you're just at odds. Now he has the opportunity to go to the rest of the world and say, what am I worth, guys? 235 guaranteed, fully guaranteed, right? Right? Anybody? And then he comes back to them and says, actually, the best thing I came up with was 200 with 150 guaranteed over. And it's a good deal, but I guess I was a little bit off of my market. And then if you're the Ravens, you say, yeah, I'm sorry it came to this, but I'm glad we could figure something out. We want you here for the next 5 years. Let's do it.
I like the way you played that, Phil. Good job. That was illuminating for me. I'm not even kidding. Phil.
I'm sorry that I missed my first opportunity to do it, but thanks for giving me a second swing at the bat.
Speaking of swinging bats, the New York Jets en masse. The entire team is on a plane out to California to meet and summit with the patchouli smelling dirty guy that is Aaron Rodgers.
What is patchouli?
It's like a thing that deadheads wear. It's nasty smelling shit. Patchouli, it's like a scent.
Huh.
You never would have smelled it in Milton.
I'm gonna look
Or
it up.
Georgetown.
It's an essential oil.
It's an essential oil, but it's essentially fucking nasty.
It sounds like Skull Crusher might have some experience with it, so you might not want to criticize.
That's the kind of thing that people in Leominster would wear. It's not the kind of thing people do.
That's nice.
See, now you've insulted the Skull Crusher.
People in Pembroke or at St. Anselm, we have patchouli wearers.
He's bathing in patchouli right now, and you're just crapping all over it.
I'm going to absolutely smear patchouli all over your locker in the green room. So the Jets en masse are going out to take a fire hose to him, clean him up, and bring him back to New York. You know what? I think Aaron Rodgers would retire sooner than he would sign with the Jets because I think he's absolutely afraid of being in that kind of maelstrom. I don't think he could deal with it. I think he'd turtle. He can't even get along in Green Bay without feeling like he's constantly persecuted. He would never go to New York. And he'll stand on principle. But the reality is he's afraid of it. He has to control everything. And he'd be out of control in New York in terms of the media, the storylines, the number of outlets. He can't deal with it. And I know we could say, oh, well, he has national media. Those are outlets too. Green Bay can be a tough market to a degree because the people really give a shit, but they're not going to eat you alive the same way they will in New York if things don't go your way. He'll be afraid of it. He won't go.
So here's the issue with that. And I feel as though if he were smart, that would be the thought process that he would go through. I'm not really great with this stuff. I don't really want to deal with it. Even if it's a better team and I might look better and I might even have a crack at another MVP. No, thank you. I think, Tom, right now it's sort of looking like Jets or bust. The Packers don't want him. Is he going to be back? Is he going to be back at a place where he's not wanted? So are you suggesting that he might retire rather than play for the Jets?
Well, what about the Raiders? I mean, they can figure out the cap space, reunite him with Devontae Adams.
It's $60 million. I don't know. The owner's just giving away a lot.
Suck some of it up.
Yeah, they could.
I just don't think he'll have the balls to go to the Jets.
You think Josh McDaniels wants Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think Josh would. Yeah, I would think that. Especially going from Derek Carr to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there's only one guy who's really Brady-esque in terms of brain. Really, right? Is there anybody else in that department? Mahomes isn't even really where Brady is pre-snap, post-snap. No. So Rodgers is it. I think Josh would do that. But he's going to sign Jimmy. Same guy. Jimmy, Brady, Favre.
Yeah, right.
Rodgers.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we would have heard more buzz about Rodgers to the Raiders if they were interested. Devontae Adams is there. There's a million reasons why he should be going there. Why are we never talking about it?
Because we're too busy talking about Mac Jones going there.
I don't know. It's just an interesting one. I feel like there's something there that is making that not an option. But I would love to see him in New York because I do think it would be a poop show. I also think it would be fun for the Patriots to play him twice a year. And you could be looking at a division, Tom, next year where you have Tom Brady thinking about already coming back in 2024. So maybe he's convinced to do that, 6 months early. So now you've got Brady twice a year, Rodgers twice a year, Josh Allen twice a year for Bill Belichick.
Against Bailey Zappi. Because Mac's going to get traded to the Raiders. But if he doesn't, Jimmy Garoppolo remains out there. Do you think he'll wind up with the Raiders? Do you think that's an upgrade from Jarrett Stidham? I say that with a straight face.
I think it's an upgrade from Jarrett Stidham. I don't think it's an upgrade from Derek Carr. And I think that's the whole reason they got rid of him in the first place was they thought they were going to be able to get an upgrade. And now maybe Jimmy Garoppolo is an upgrade. I'm thinking of, two quarterbacks in a vacuum. I'm not even really considering scheme. Like Carr and Garoppolo I view as on the same plane and Carr being actually slightly better. But maybe because Garoppolo has the experience in the scheme, and McDaniels thinks he'd be able to handle it better than Carr did in his first year here. maybe it would work out a little bit better than Carr did, but he's not enough of an upgrade to move on from Carr in the first place, in my opinion. So it would be sort of like a settling, like the Raiders would be settling with Jimmy. That's how I view it.
But here's your other options that are really out there on the free agent market to be extracted. Carson Wentz being one of them, but let's go to the draft first, actually, because you're drafting 7th overall and the combine just ended. And I'm just going to run through these 4 or 5 names here from the quarterback position. And Phil, since you're kind of our front man on draft stuff, I want you to tell us what you think of what these guys did. First up, Bryce Young. Accurate mother scratcher. How do things look for him at the combine? Do you still think he is your QB1?
Yeah. So he's short. He's 5'10", but he weighed in heavier at the combine than he did as a player at Alabama. And I think he was heavier at the combine than he will be as a player at the NFL level. I think he just threw on a bunch of weight to get over 200 bills, which he did. So congratulations to him on that.
Mm-hmm.
But very accurate. I think in terms of just, if you're just looking at the play, he's the best player at that position in this year's draft. But if you want to factor in size along with the play and ceiling, things of that nature, I could see a world in which CJ Stroud is actually the first quarterback taken off the board. I still can't do it with Anthony Richardson. I can't do it with Will Levis. But Bryce Young is the best player. You just have to be comfortable with him playing at 5'10", like 185, maybe, Tom.
So those are dimensions similar to Russell Wilson and similar to Kyler Murray. Do you think he might not have that little roadrunner Mimi speed that Kyler Murray has? But it certainly seems like the intangibles to Bryce Young are off the frickin' charts in a way that maybe they weren't. And that's been borne out a bit with Kyler Murray.
No question. And I think, again, like both guys, like Russell Wilson, I think played at 210 as a rookie, or thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bryce Young might be 20 pounds lighter than that. And he's also not the athlete that either of those guys were as rookies. So that's what concerns you, and you get hit the wrong way and somebody falls on you at 185 or 190 pounds. Like it's a little different. So that would be my concern. Even though he's accurate and he makes good decisions and he knows how to process and he can make some plays on the move, I just would worry about his size and his durability.
So in terms of him being a dual threat, not necessarily what you're looking for.
He's really not. That wasn't his game at Alabama. He really wasn't a runner.
CJ Stroud, then you look at him and some of the things that he brings to the table. Rob Rang, a longtime draft expert, called him on Fox Sports already a more polished passer than his predecessor, Justin Fields. You look at him as an early first round pick, top 5, top 10 player. What did he do to his stock over the weekend?
I think he helped it a little bit. I think his on the field work was pretty impressive, but it's going to be more about the interviews and what do teams feel like you can handle, and that will continue through the spring. These teams that have the chance to potentially take him will meet with him several times, I'm sure, and just see what his ability to retain and regurgitate information is like. This is the guy that I would move up for if I'm Josh McDaniels, because I think he would be a very good fit in the McDaniels offense. This is he's a pocket passer and he's accurate, Tom. And so in the right system, I think he could have a lot of success.
So does he bring you dual threat skills in the same way that Justin Fields does, his predecessor,
Not close. He's a pocket guy. That's what his game is going to be moving forward. The guy who's closest to Justin Fields would be Richardson.
Talk to me about Richardson, because massive buzz circulated about him, but you can't just ignore the fact that the guy had the number of picks that he did at Florida. You can't ignore really the motion. If you look at his motion, it's loose. Sometimes on Sunday Night Football, they'll show that video where they show how quickly and how narrow the ball comes up. He looks like he's throwing it from shortstop. It's all the way out here. And the more movement, the less body rotation because you're using your arm as a whip. Anyway, enough of Tom Curran's layperson's throwing tutorials. He's a friggin' gamble and a half.
It would require real hubris to believe that you can turn Anthony Richardson into Josh Allen. Now, does that mean it can't happen? No, but you have to be all kinds of, you have to have some irresponsible levels of confidence to take him inside the top 5, I think. Tom, he completed about 50% of his passes at Florida. He's working with pros there. I mean, they're not loaded up the same way some other teams are with crazy receiving talent, but it's not like the way it's
not like everybody's pressing in the SEC either. I mean, these guys are open.
And it's not like what I was told was, listen, if you think it could be the next Josh Allen, great. That guy has done something that basically nobody else has done in terms of going from being an inaccurate player to now an accurate player, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But the thing that made Josh Allen's projection more enticing in some ways was that, well, he's at Wyoming. Who's he throwing to? He's throwing to guys whose football careers are done when they leave the field for the most part. Anthony Richardson's in the SEC. He's working with real pro-level talent on the offensive line and at the skill positions, and he still completed 50% of his passes. That to me would be a little scary. But if you can, Tom, in the right system, you can turn him into a bigger, faster version of Jalen Hurts. That's why this guy's going to go in the first round, is because that is a thing. And not only bigger and faster, better arm than Jalen Hurts too. I mean, he has every tool.
More accurate. Better arm, but not more accurate.
Well, Jalen Hurts wasn't considered super accurate when he was coming out either. And he's developed that over a couple of years.
He really has.
So if you can, I think, Tom, if you're a team that feels as though you can get him into a spot as a rookie where he has a few packages in your offense, short yardage, goal line, you want to try to use him occasionally in real game situations, meaningful situations in that way in year one, while you're developing him and getting him to be a little more crisp with his footwork and a little bit more accurate with the football. Then year 2, year 3, then you can hand him the keys eventually. That's the perfect spot to me. Like that athleticism buys you time. I think that a non-athletic guy doesn't have the benefit of.
That to me is why his interviews have to be perfect. That's why, say for instance, you are the Raiders and you want to do that. You have to have Mick Lombardi, if he's still the offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach, sit down and say, you're probably not going to play. Here's all the stuff that you do shitty, but we're going to make you a top 10 pick because we think you have enough to work with. Jarrett Stidham's probably going to be our starter. It's a guy you can get. He is gettable. But until you can throw like him, you're watching. Okay? Got that?
And I think that's fair. I would also say, though, like with Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson, it's my understanding, was someone who certainly did not wow during the interview process. They didn't have to take him in the top 10, so it's a little different conversation. But they took him at 32. They basically gave him a year, and they bought in fully to what he is as a player. That to me is almost more important than the interviews, Tom, is having an offensive coordinator and a coaching staff that says, this is what you do well. So we're not going to ask you to be Tom Brady. We're not going to ask you to be Aaron Rodgers. We're going to ask you to be you. We're going to lean into the run game. You're going to run over people. You're 245 pounds and you run like the wind and you've got a cannon of an arm. We're going to try to scheme things up so guys are wide ass open so you don't have to be the most accurate guy in the world. Like that to me is the most important thing, is getting the buy-in, the way the Ravens bought into Lamar Jackson and changed their offense and built it around him. That was a brilliant move by them. That's what you need, I think, if you're drafting him.
And that's interesting because do you sacrifice, if you are a wonderkind offensively with the X's and the O's and the schemes, do you sacrifice your beloved timing in the offense and the option routes and the things that made you who you are if you're Josh McDaniels? Will Levis, give me the skinny on him and how his weekend went. Then we're going to talk a little bit of Daniel Jones and get everybody out of here.
another really toolsy guy, just not as toolsy as Anthony Richardson. So we're not talking about him as much, but good athlete, good arm, could throw it through a wall, like every tool that you want.
He'll be on the board at 14, won't he?
I don't know. See, this might be another, and he's a guy who, I've been told is really good, like on the board, right? So, but it's when the bullets are live, things sort of fall apart a little bit. I think he's got a little Stidham-y sort of quality, maybe as far as that goes, but his tools are way better. So if you're Josh McDaniels, do you look at that and say, we could actually take this guy at 7 and would use his legs? He's got the arm to put it wherever we need him to. I just need to coach him in a certain way on this, and I need him to see the game like that. And if we can do that, then we've got a real player on our hands. I think he's got everything that you want, but he just was so inconsistent at times in college that would, again, a little bit similar conversation to Richardson, just not the athlete, but in terms of the inconsistency, there's enough there that would give me pause, unless I'm very confident that I can coach him to be more consistent.
Before I get to Daniel Jones and the breaking news surrounding him, I'm going to ask you one question about the variety of free agent quarterbacks that are on the market, Teddy Bridgewaters and Sam Darnold, et cetera. I'm going to ask you this. If you're the Patriots and you're not quite sure about Mac Jones, you've just moved on from Brian Hoyer, going to release him, and Bailey Zappi's maybe not your cup of tea. Would you find it worth more than a second's consideration bringing in Baker Mayfield? He could beat out Mac. He could definitely beat out Zappi. He could look better than both of them. He's not going to be more than a $10 million guy.
It's a good question, because the thing about Mayfield to me is he's such a strong personality. Are you inviting dysfunction by paying him? And now he's your highest paid quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He is a big name. People in the locker room will look to him and say, "Hey, I know that. I remember that guy. That guy,
commercials.
He's all over my TV. He looked halfway decent in LA for a hot second there." What's going on? Anytime there's a bad moment or a bad game from Mac Jones, do you invite those kinds of questions? Hey, what about this guy over here? He can play, can he? Wasn't he like rookie of the year or something a few years ago?
Which flies in the face of my contention that this year, leave him alone. Just leave Mac Jones alone.
That's why I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I'd use the $10 million to go get something else. Go get anything else. Get a lineman. Put it towards your lineman fund. Put it toward your trade for a veteran receiver fund. Put it toward your cornerback fund. Your safeties. If Devin McCourty is not coming back, it's actually a pretty good safety free agent class.
Yeah.
I'm not spending that money on another quarterback. I'm in your boat of the, can you just, I don't know, crazy idea here. Just try to support your young quarterback and see how good he can be in a good situation. Stop throwing mounds of adversity in his direction. Like, we all want all of our local athletes to be able to overcome adversity. But at a certain point, especially at that position, especially for a young guy, you have to nurture them and until they're ready to handle all the adversity that's inevitably going to come their way at that position. It's coming regardless. You don't need to create more. And I feel like that's all they've done. Cam, it's beating out Cam Newton, and then it's changing the offensive coordinator, and then now it's bringing in big. Like, can he be nurtured?
Leave him alone.
It works other places. It does work other places.
This is a perfect segue, because the other place that it worked was in New York with Big Blue, the Giants, the G-Men. They had 2 years of Joe Judge married up with Daniel Jones, and things didn't go so good. Went so poorly that after Joe Judge was jettisoned, owner John Mara said, "We've done everything possible we could to screw up this kid," meaning Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, according to our friend Albert Breer, has agreed to a 4-year, $160 million deal with an additional $35 million that Jones can make an incentive. So is that a 195 potentially, or at least a 4-40? Now we'll probably see it gets winnowed down a bit once the numbers come, but that's a lot for a guy who I don't think is really better than Mac Jones. They could have franchised him for the non-exclusive 32.5, but you're also signing him for the franchise number this year for the next 4 years. And the franchise number is going to go up because of inflation. Thoughts on Danny Jones?
4 for $40 million per, with the ability to make damn near $50 million per.
Mm-hmm.
It's madness to me.
15 touchdowns and 5 picks, folks. And this was a great year for him.
It was a fine year for him. 15 touchdowns in today's NFL, Tom, is...
No, I know. That's what I mean. That's a great year. It's a great Daniel Jones year.
Yeah. And now you're paying him. And now it's going to get, unless the Mars are just, looking to burn money, it's going to get hard to reasonably spend around that position on a team, Tom, that already has almost no talent on the offensive side of the ball. Like, maybe they can franchise Saquon Barkley now if they've come to a long-term agreement with Daniel Jones. And so that's helpful, but it's a running back. They've got nothing at receiver. They've got a promising young tackle on the offensive line, and that's great. But boy, good luck. Good luck paying that guy. I mean, that's just this is a good way to get fired, in my opinion, if you're the Giants front office.
So
because I just don't think you're winning anything meaningful with this guy as your quarterback. And maybe he'll make me eat my words. I hope he does. He seems like a nice guy. It's a tough market. I do respect his willingness to run, and he seems like a tough individual physically. But $50 million a year potentially for a guy who is not getting you inside the top 10 at that position is a bad decision.
Okay. So Phil thinks it might not be that great a decision.
Do you think it's a good decision?
It's devil in the deep blue sea, devil versus devil you don't. Devil
but aren't they perfectly situated to just rebuild? Like because there's nothing else around him. It's going to take
down to Georgia.
It's going to take 4 years to build up the roster around him, Tom. And now he's maybe gone anyway. So why wouldn't you just start the whole thing over now?
This is the Andrew Brandt conversation from last year. You should have built it up by now.
Right. And they didn't, because, Dave Gettleman's using top picks on running backs, and, it's hard to hit in the draft consistently and all that. But boy, it's been hard to build around Daniel Jones when he's been making no money. And now he's making all the money, and you've got to build around him.
All right. Phil's indignant over this. We have early edition in just a little while. I had a big lunch, so before I get up into my car, I think I need to have a lay down. It's 4:18. Hopefully the Skull Crusher can get this thing turned around right quick. Sorry, it's taken a bit of time. Phil, you don't need to hear everything. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye.